Well, welcome to another Innovision FM with Johnny J. And this is I think this will be our second show of this month. And I want to talk about, because I've been listening to some of these YouTube talk about reparations, okay? Tony talk, especially this guy. Sometimes he's a lawyer in California, and he's just passionate about paying black people for what happened in the past. So I'm gonna talk about that. But before I do, let's let you know that you're listening to Innovision FM. My name is Johnny J. I'm the only totally blind TV producer in Colorado. And I got into this, I don't know, back in the late 80s, early 90s. And the first concept of the show was I wanted to bring people with disabilities on TV and talk about their disabilities, because I saw, like, on buses, mothers would see people with disabilities, and the kids would ask, like, Mom, why does that person have a cane, or why is that person in a wheelchair? And the mother would say, shh, don't say that, you know. And so I said, well, why not? You know, your kids is that could be a learning moment. And I've only saw in my years of living one kid was running around and he almost tripped over my cane, and the mother stopped and said, you know, I know you're hyperactive, but you know, whenever you see a cane like this, and she took that moment to be a teaching moment for the child. And I was so happy to see that. I said, well, you know, because I'm thinking, like, who's the next person to come along, you know, the younger person, who will I pass the torch to of other blind people to pick up the torch. And I know the Federation of the Blind, they're pretty radical, and they go to Washington, you know, Washington and the capitals of different cities, and they advocate for rights for blind people. And and so far, you know, we haven't got it where the literacy rate for blind people that read Braille, because there's so many, I guess, technological things going on where blind people are, you know, using screen readers and so forth, but they're losing the art of reading with their fingers, reading Braille, and seeing how a word is spelled, how a sentence is structured. And so only 10% of us are literate in Braille. And of course, I do know Braille, and I'll show you my Braille notes here. So I do know Braille myself, okay? So you can see little bumps there, okay? So, but you know, I'm one of the 10% of blind people, low vision people that actually know Braille and was taught Braille. And I resisted quite a bit, because since I wasn't born blind, and it was caused by doctors giving me medicine that I was allergic to that caused Stevens-Johnson syndrome, there was a pushback, because my parents said, well, if they mess you up, they could fix you up. And I didn't, and so I learned Braille in grade school, and then I would quickly forget it after the teacher came in. The student teacher would come in to teach it, you know, to get her thesis or master's or whatever. And I would quickly just forget about it, because I said, hey, if they mess me up, they can fix me up, right? I was going along with what my parents said in a naive way, right? And I had friends who are blind who they learned it from the get-go, and they're better reader, better spellers than I am, more faster, more fluent in Braille than I am, because I went along with that philosophy. If doctors mess you up, they can fix you up, which is not true for the most part. And another part of my philosophy is, if God meant for doctors to cut you open and take out things, then God would have made you with a zipper. So you can just unzip yourself and say, oh, I need to, this gallbladder is giving me a problem. Let me just take that gallbladder out. Okay, let me zip it back up. Okay. Oh, what, my kidney? Oh, there's one kidney that's not working well, so let me unzip and take out this kidney. No, but he's given us herbs to to offset some of these things, and it's given us like fasting, and giving us some tools that we can use as human beings, so we can correct many of these problems that now these doctors are coming up with these very dangerous drugs to work on. So anyway, I'm going off into another direction, and I wanted to talk about reparations and Tani Talk and all that kind of stuff. So Intervision is a nonprofit organization. We work with physically challenged musical artists to teach them the business of music. And you say, well, what are some of your topics don't have nothing to do with business, but it has something to do with just thoughts that I have as a blind person. And the music business is the music business, and the topics that are being talked, they're being sang about and rapped about today, don't necessarily agree with, because it's bringing a lot of negativity to black and brown communities, and now even to the white community, because they love our culture, they love to make money off our culture. But some of these cultural things, the negative cultural things, are just not good for America, not good for people as a people, and teaching this bling 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 and unrealistic capitalism without any education, just the bling bling, and not getting into the root of the problem is just not good. But what can I say? This is what it is, and you can push back and educate your children and talk to them, and don't be so consumed with you're making money. Yes, okay, so to feed the kids, feed that, but spend time. And I'm talking to myself as well, because I probably could have did a better job of talking to my kids as well. But I thought, showing them the example. But now I know that what my mother was doing, I would get tired of it. She's always telling me stuff. I said, don't you ever get tired of talking? Well, I never told her that. I thought that, because if I would have told her that, it would have been like Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, the gorilla in Manila. It would have been a box. So there were certain things that I couldn't say, because she was the dictator of the house, and so that's just the way it was back in those days. But I believe in like communication, back and forth conversation, not a dialogue, but a conversation between parent and child, right? Because you do have a lot of wisdom. Because if you have a child, you have to be around a little while. Even if you're a teen mom, which please God, stop this. But you have a little bit of knowledge, and hopefully you'll open up a book or listen to the wisdom of your parents if they're not drug dealers and alcoholics and other stuff. Well, you'll listen to them and say, I don't want to be that. All right. But anyway, I digress. I'm sorry, I digress. I get into so many streams of thought, almost like Jamie White on Alice Station morning show. My stream of thoughts goes left and right, up and down, and it's very spontaneous. But anyway, Tani Talk and reparations is what I want to talk about here on Intervision FM. Okay, so I see him passionately talk about America owes black people reparations. And I'm saying America doesn't owe us crap. I know that's radical. America only owes us just to leave us alone, like a republic. Let us educate our kids. Let us get the tools that we need to educate our kids, educate ourselves. If we need a voucher to get our school, if the schools in our neighborhoods are failing our children, we should be allowed to have a voucher so we can go to the schools that will put our children's education on the top ring, and not just collecting the check and waiting for their pension to kick in. And yes, there's some good teachers out there, but for the ones who are not, who are just there for the check, just there waiting for their pension, for their seniority, well, let them stay where they are and let us have the option to move our children to a charter school or a Catholic school or any school that will teach academics over the socialist manifesto, the socialist left-leaning educational system that we have in place now in the public schools, Denver public schools and other public schools. Because I see that, I know that Polis wants to, and this is my stream of thought again, Polis wants to have kids start in the government system at the age of 3, right? Where the government has control of the kids to indoctrinate them. And they said, like, you know, if you look at like places like maybe like even Sweden, where the people, they have this cold look in their face. I mean, you can't really tell what they're thinking, whatever. If you have your kids being taught by the government, how are they going to learn? They're going to learn some of your values, but they're going to be indoctrinated by those other values. And so when they come home and you're saying one thing, but the school is saying another thing, who's going to win out? And some parents are so busy with 2 jobs, 3 jobs, whatever, you know, the Democrats have policies they put in to make you work harder so you're distracted, right? You may not have time to reverse the social engineering that the left wing is doing to your children in the school. So you need to set up something where that the school mirrors your values, that the school is there to teach them, not to go off on these tangents of let's teach them about sexuality and make them sexual so we can have a economy for the abortion clinics, because if they're sexualized at an early age, they'll go off and have sex, have unwanted pregnancies, and then we can get money killing their babies. Right? Or we can put them in jail, in prison, because they didn't learn anything in the school. They didn't learn how to read and write and do math. They didn't know anything about the history. So now they're just these empty minds looking for themselves and out there committing crimes, looking at the bling bling and the gangsters and the excitement of that. And they'll go that direction. And so then we can supply our prison systems with money to house these people and turn them into indentured slaves. Okay. Getting back to Tani Talk and reparation and why I disagree with him. If you if you do the math, which I'm not very good at math, but I at least know this. If you give it like, what would be the price? Would it be like 20,000? What would be the reparational price? 100,000? What would be the price? And out of the people that are on the planet doing this reparation thing, after you give some who are educated and some who are not educated and some who are definitely not educated in finances, the people that are not educated in finances, because we're not taught finances. We're not taught finances in schools, and a lot of us are you know, doing the American way, living off of credit cards, living off the MasterCard. Why do they call it the MasterCard? Because it becomes the master over you, because you're so far in debt, you can't afford to live because you're paying all this money to pay off the MasterCard. Okay, so say you give, we'll come up with a silly number, right? Because as you know, $20,000 if money is going out and nothing's coming in, $20,000 doesn't last that long. Believe me, I know. I've gone through money like crazy, and I know how money can flow out the window very fast. So you say you gave reparation of $20,000 to every black person, or in the case of this one guy running for president said, I'll give everybody over the age of 18 $1,000 a month, right? $1,000 a month. That's not going to go anywhere if you're just sitting at home with mama and daddy in the basement playing your video games. Not going to do much of anything. But anyway, let's say we gave all the black people $20,000. And so you have the smart ones that they may know how to invest and do that and stuff. But then you have a lot of financially illiterate black people who they spend and they spend. They never save. They spend. They see these nice tennis shoes. Oh, I gotta have those tennis shoes. Oh, those tennis shoes cost $400. Oh, I gotta have them. Or you see these nice clothes, or you see the car. A car may cost $17,000 if you put down cash, right? Maybe they might give you a deal, you can buy one for $15,000. So then you have $5,000 left off of your reparation money, right? Tony Talk being a lawyer and being an intelligent man. He's not a stupid man. He's an intelligent man. But this talk about reparation, I'd rather, being that we're living in a republic, not a democracy, I would rather educate myself, get my kids educated financially and academically, and earn my money rather than waiting for a left-wing Democrat to develop social programs to enslave us to the government. Yes, we broke away from England because we didn't want a king over us. But now the Democrats say, okay, you don't want a king over us, but we'll get a group of people that we think know more than you about how to live your life, and we'll put our hands in every aspect of your life because we're taking money from the middle class and the rich and we're giving it to you. Or let's try to eliminate the middle class, because why do we need a middle class? Why don't we just have the poor and we have the rich, right? And we're always taking money from the rich and the businesses and we're giving it to these people. And they're beholden to us because we'll come around once a year and we'll promise them that we'll give you more welfare. We'll give you more food stamps. You don't need a car. You don't need a car. Get on the bus and we'll subsidize the R2D. So you can ride it for maybe a quarter. We'll take it back to, when was it? Back to the 1970s, 1960s when it only cost a quarter, right? But we'll give you this little check and you're beholden to us. And yes, you can look at the TV and you can see all the bling bling that the rich people have and all these other people, but you can just look at it. You can't have it because we're only giving you, we gave you that $20,000, so that was your reparation, and now you're broke. Now we're gonna give you $1,000 a month, and we're gonna, put you in subsidized, unsafe environments where people are feeding criminals after each other, because if they could steal it from you, they could have more than you while they're living in this Section 8 or they're living in this project, right? This ghetto that we have developed. And I had to put this part. When I first got on SSDI, I was seeing it as something to help blind people that possibly couldn't get a position in another area. My area was radio and broadcasting believe me, unless you're like really super talented or you got the right connections, maybe you're not even super talented, but you got the right connections, you're not going to make much money in the arts or radio, right? Bad choice on my side, but it was something that I aspired to do, so I got in that field. So I said, well, when I'm not, if I can't get a job as a waiter or waitress or whatever, or some other type of, and I was getting tired of being a dishwasher. If I can get some other type of job that can support me, then I can have this to fall back on. And my mother got so mad, and I didn't understand because she wasn't a very good communicator. She couldn't sit down and say, okay, Johnny, in my life, whenever you depend on the government will control you, will only give you what they think you should have. And if you're a capitalistic person and you want to earn more, the government will penalize you for achieving. Not the government per se, but the left-wing Democrat government, which I didn't know that it was mostly the left-wing socialist Democrats that put in these policies to punish you if you make more money than what they want you to make. So when she was talking to me, she did it in such a crass and rude way that it just turned my ears off. Now, and that was just her way of communicating. She only went up to the 6th grade. She was never like, she never read up on how to communicate with people. It was like her way or the highway, which, a lot of people are that way. And she taught discipline, and she taught this other thing, but this, your way or the highway, it worked for maybe a lot of people, and maybe it works in the military, the army, when they say, I own you. You are the property of the United States of America, and you are in service in here, and we will shape you and mold you into the soldier that the United States of America wants you to be, right? So she was the colonel. I mean, she was the captain. She was the woman in charge, and she was taught in a military type way. And I was that person. If you sit down and you talk to me and you explain things and you make it clear, but no time for that. Do it, or it becomes the gorilla in Manila, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier time, right? And I say this with humor, right? She did the best that she could do with the skills that she had. All right. So I went that direction. I signed up for the SSDI thing, and I got jobs as dishwashing, and I got a few jobs working as a DJ where I got paid. But I did a lot of volunteering at radio stations instead of going for commercial stations. Which, if you really want to prove yourself to see where the playing ground is, you go for the commercial station where they pay you for your work. Where when you bring in the ratings and you prove that you can keep people listening to that station, they will reward you with salaries and up like that. And I let my insecurities get the best of me and say, well, I like the non-commercial because it's it's pretty flexible and it's kind of relaxed, instead of pushing myself to go towards the commercial. And I'm just giving you my personal background to say this is. I can look back at my life now and I can see this is where you probably should have been more motivated to go towards the commercial, even though there's some evil characters in commercials. I mean, they're evil in non-commercial, but the characters. I mean, I once was working at a commercial station, and I went in to ask the program director, which is a female, how long would she be in the studio, because I wanted to get in and cut a commercial. And I went back and I told the guy that I was training, I just talked to the female program director, and I asked her how long, and then he covered his hands and he says, "Oh no, Johnny, oh no, no, no." And I said, "What did I do? I just asked her a question." He says, "No, you're supposed to ask me, then I go ask her." And I said, "Nobody told me that. I just thought, I saw her there. I had enough sight to look in the window and I could see her, I didn't have like good vision, but I could see her through the window, and I'd say, well, let me just knock on the red light is not on." I waited until the red light went off, because that when the red light is on, that's when somebody's talking in the mic. And I opened the door. I said, "I want to get into this." And he says, "No, no, no, Johnny. You have to ask me, then I will ask her. And if she doesn't want to get out of the studio, or if she doesn't want to answer that question, she'll give me a look." Now he had 20/20 vision. He knew the look. I didn't have 20/20 vision. I didn't know the look. Right? So I messed up. And so I wasn't hired after my internship to work at that station because I crossed her, the program director. And so she ended my commercial career at that station right then. And she moved along, and I could have went back after she left, but I learned a good lesson, and I was able to look back on that and say, okay, that's the lesson I learned. Then I became a DJ at this club, and the boss, who he used to be a DJ, he was a very lazy manager. He got the position, he worked his way up. He says, "I want to make more money than the DJs," and he was making a lot of money, more than the DJs. But he was late with filling out the paperwork to get our payroll in. So bands would come in, and he said, "Well, I don't have your check. Come back 2 days later. Come back a week later." And the rule is, you go there, you do your show, you get paid. It's all negotiable. It's like, but because he was a lazy and manager, sometimes an employee wouldn't get their checks until a week, sometimes 2 weeks later. And I kept going down to his boss to complain about his laziness. So when the 9/11 hit, who did they let go? The one that was complaining the most. And the other DJ told me, "Johnny, you should fight for this. You should fight for this." But because I had SSDI to lean back on, I said, "Well, I have something to lean back on. I didn't go for unemployment. I just went and said, and I didn't fight for what I could have fought for and could have won." And a lot of the employees, he was doing this to the waiters, to the greeters. He was doing it to the dishwashers. He was doing it to the bands. He was doing it to me as a DJ as well. And so it wasn't just me he was doing this to. He was doing it to everybody. And so, you live and learn. But this show on reparation, don't think it's a good idea. Black people, we're intelligent. We don't need white people who are living the day to pay for something that their great-great-great-grandparent or great-great cousin or did in the past. We're living now. It's more exciting to make your living now than to reach way back in the past and say, "You owe me something. I'm entitled to something." No, you're not entitled to nothing. You have to get up like everybody else, get your education, get out there and work, and do it that way. Anyway, for Intervision FM, go to our website, intervisionrecords.org. Call us at 720-324-72778, and leave your voicemail. You may see it on one of our radio shows. IntervisionFM.com is our radio station 24/7. God bless you. See you the next time. This is Johnny J.